Pronunciation Guide. Good news! The Filipino languages are phonetic. That means that words are always spelled how they sound. However, with the infusion of foreign languages and words, some new letters have been adopted, and in some cases that means there are multiple ways to spell things. But rest assured that with an understanding of these few rules I've included, if you can just see a word written down, you will be able to confidently pronounce the word. Well, as long as you know which syllables to stress, that is, and which words need glottal stops. What is a glottal stop? For what seems to be the majority of English speakers, a glottal stop sounds like a lazy T. We see the letter T in the word feet, but subconsciously in conversation we pronounce it as feet. That sound is actually called a glottal stop, and a lot of Filipino words that end in a vowel actually have a hidden glottal stop. So when you see the word makita, which means to see something, it may be easier for you to pronounce it as though it was spelled makitat, but without touching your tongue to the roof of your mouth for the final T. It's critical to stress all of the right syllables as well. Nearly every word in the Filipino languages has 2 or more syllables, and for you to pronounce words with incorrectly stressed syllables would be like someone saying retain, where they meant to say written. So in this book, there are 3 different markings you might see on top of vowels. You might see something that looks like this, a rising slope on top of a vowel. You might see something that's a descending slope, or you might see something that's like a caret. It's like a peak on top of a vowel. And these 3 markings help you know which syllables to stress and which words end in a glottal stop. Okay? So this first one here, which is a rising slope, you can see it on top of any vowel. It could be the first syllable of the word, it could be the last syllable of the word, but all it means is stress this syllable. The next 2 here mean that you need to do a glottal stop at the end of the word. And they also indicate which syllable is stressed. This one right here, which is the descending slope, means stress the second to last syllable in the word and do a glottal stop. So an example of this in English would be parrot. See how I stress the parrot. And at the end, I've got a little glottal stop for the parrot. Okay? And then this one right here means stress the last syllable of the word and do a glottal stop. So an example of this in English would be like receipt. Sometimes we might just drop the t and it'd be receipt, right? It's a glottal stop and the second syllable is stressed, the seat. Receipt. Okay? Filipino consonants. When coming from an English background and speaking a Filipino language for the first time, you will need to move your tongue forward and even touch the back of your top teeth when making sounds like t or d or l or n. So it'd be something like t, d, l, n. For the consonant p, try as hard as you can to make it sound like a mixture of p and f. For b, try to make it sound like a mixture of b and v. So an American would pronounce it like t. A Filipino would soften it. It would sound like t or th. And you can barely hear it. Most of what you hear in Filipino languages is the vowels. The consonants are very soft. An American d is very hard. In Filipino, it's more like d, d, d. You've got your tongue touching the back of your top teeth. Now, these differences are very subtle, obviously, so just try to mimic what you hear. The j sound is most often indicated by diy or dy, as in the word Diyos, which means God. But in some cases, it is simply written as j. The sh sound is indicated by si, siy, or sy, such as in the words siya, which means he or she, and bakasyon, which means vacation. The ch sound is indicated most often by ts, as in tianggi, which means mini store, a big part of Filipino culture, or as in the word tiek, which means check, or lechon, meaning roast. Sometimes it's just indicated by ty or tiy, as in tien, meaning stomach. You will also find a new consonant in the Filipino languages, ng. Believe it or not, ng really is treated as one letter, even though it's written ng. In English, when we pronounce the word singer, we don't actually pronounce the g sound at all. But when we pronounce the word finger, the g sound is always present. If we were to spell the word finger with true Filipino phonetics, we would spell it F-I-N-G-G-E-R. See how we use NG together as one consonant. Pair that with the g sound, and then you've got nger, finger. Singer is just the NG. Singer, singer. Okay? The dash. When you see a dash in between two letters, it simply means that there is an abrupt but distinct vocal absence between the two syllables. If nothing else, that's just what it is, a syllable separator. An example of this would be lauai, which means ugly, and lauai means saliva. Ask a native to pronounce these two words and you can listen to the difference. Filipino vowels. The beautiful thing about vowels in Filipino languages is the fact that they are few in number. They're not quite the exact same sound as any of the vowels you're used to, but while you are still learning, you can think of them as closely resembling the following. A, as in father or kal or car. E, as in let or tell or feather. I, or e, as in fill or wish or thin or eat or feel. O, as in boat or tone or row. U, as in boot or shoe. The diphthongs in Ilonggo are ow, as in cow or ouch or arouse. Another one is I, as in buy or fly or pie. Another one is oi, as in boy or choice. And another one is a, as in cake or ape. Carefully mimic the vowels exactly as you hear them. Though you will likely be understood just fine if you pronounce them how I've described above, you can further improve your accent if you stop thinking of English vowel pronunciation altogether. One thing you'll notice is that some vowels are slurred to a different sound if they're not part of the stressed syllable. Oftentimes, a is simply pronounced as it is in about when it's not the stressed syllable. E often turns into I, and o often turns into u when it's not the stressed syllable. When I is not a stressed syllable, it often turns into a as in fake or e as in teeth. When all else fails, or before all else if you're a wise individual, I would encourage you to ask your nearest native Hiligaynon speaker to read these phrases out loud for you, to listen carefully and mimic. This will save you from developing bad habits that no one will ever correct you on, which would leave you sounding silly every time you say words like sagad for the rest of forever. So I feel like that's a lot more theory than application. As I continue to read through this book and I get to the actual phrases and things, just listen to how I say them and try to mimic it. And you'll notice how some of this theory applies. Now, obviously, I'm an American. I have an American accent. As hard as I try to sound like a Filipino, I'm always going to come up a little bit short. So if you can, try to speak with natives as much as possible, like I was saying before.